Yeah, we'd like to take a minute after we do the pledge. We're going to ask for a moment of silence for Mike's dad, who just passed away last week. He was a great guy, and on behalf of the board, Mike, our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you.
Long-time Fairfield guy, so our condolences.
Thank you very much. All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Just before getting started, I will take one moment, because I've gotten a few questions from residents, and just mention that the reason my head is shaved was because I participated in a St. Baldrick's fundraiser to raise funds for the fight against pediatric cancer. I'm okay. It was a great experience. It was a great way to bring our community together. I participated in the Team Teddy event that had over 100 people shave their heads. Boys, girls, men, women, just a tremendous experience, and raised over $100,000 this year alone. So thank you for all the concern out there. Moving on. First up, our minutes. To consider and act upon the minutes of, do we want to take these one at a time or all together?
I'm good with all together.
All together, yes.
To consider and act upon the minutes of regular meeting of March 8th, 2017, special meeting of March 22nd, 2017, regular meeting of March 27th, 2017, and regular meeting of March 28th, 2017. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any comments, edits, or suggestions?
Just for the record, Sheila did incorporate the changes, and I was fine with them.
Okay. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's get through these. All right, next up, item 4, resignations, and this is for information only. From the Parking Authority, Micheal McCreesh, Democrat, 55 Acorn Lane, for a term of 11/13 to 11/18. His resignation date was March 29th, 2017. And then, before we get in, there's a suggestion that before we get into item 5 for the Director of Public Works, that we add an item in here and then modify item 5 by removing the last 2 paragraphs.
So,
Joe, do you want me to give my interpretation of this, or do you have some more background on the item we're supposed to add and what we're changing here?
I'll give my involvement in it. We wrote up, well, for the grant, I worked with Bob Mayer to come up with a resolution to serve the town's needs. And the first resolution that we drafted up, we were looking at it from our angle. And then Mark Barnhart, who was instrumental in obtaining this grant, said, fine, this serves our purpose, but on the other end, the people that are giving us money have some language that they'd like to see inserted also. So the final one I believe you have before you today is the merged version of the R review with the language that the State Economic Development Commission would like also. So that's my take on it.
Okay. So as I understand it, we wanted to add an item to the agenda before taking up item 5. That item would be something that only the Board of Selectmen approves, because basically that's delegating to the first Selectman authority to sign this. And then the item 5, when we remove the last 2 paragraphs, would go on to the Board of Finance and RTM, because that would be authorizing the spending of money on his behalf. Mr. Bateson?
I hear what you said, but that's what I thought we were going to do. But what Joe just said, it seems like there's merged. He merged it into one, but we're going with the 2 approach.
We're going with the 2.
Okay.
Okay, what Kathleen sent in the email. That's what we're doing.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, what I was referring to, and I'm not sure we have before you, but I think Mark Barnhart had wanted some language inserted with Connecticut, some Connecticut general statutes inserted to comply with, I believe. So that was my.
And that's what you need to execute.
Right, that's, I think, what the insert item would be. Now, just to be clear, Joe, if we wanted to get the town attorney here just to review this with us, we could do this at the next Board of Selectmen meeting if we needed to, correct?
Correct, because there's not a Board of Finance meeting that's upcoming immediately.
All right, so a lot of this came up,
Yes.
to my knowledge, yesterday and today. I saw it for the first time today. So one hand, I don't think we're doing anything that's not appropriate. And I think it's pretty straightforward once you understand it, but I'm more than comfortable if we delay this to the next meeting, if we want the town attorney here to step us through this, and if we all would like more time to look at this, so,
Has Stan reviewed it?
yes.
I'm okay today.
I'm okay as well.
I've got, this is what was recommended. Mark Barnhart's looked at this, and he's okay because that's one part of it, and Stan helped with the drafting of the additional resolution.
I'm okay with this today.
Yeah, and all this relates to is our board authorizing you to execute the agreement.
Right.
And that.
Which is what the Board of Finance and RTM don't have any say in that. That's something that this board is in the control of this board. The RTM and Board of Finance need to approve the money, so we can't go anywhere without that. And part of it is that, Joe, who's giving us this money again? The DECD
Correct.
needs
State
the
can-
governing body, which is the Board of Selectmen, to approve the item we're going to add to the agenda. They don't need the legislative body, which is the RTM, to approve that. Their charge or their requirement is that the governing body approve that. So we're basically separating out the resolution the governing body has to approve from the resolutions that the Board of Finance, certainly the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance and RTM have to approve in terms of the authorization of the expenditure.
I'm good with this.
Yeah.
Okay? Then if that's okay, and that's the big picture, then what I need is a motion to insert,
Add an item.
add an item to the agenda that was requested by the Director of the Public Works to, do we want to read this?
No, you don't have to read.
So I have a motion to waive the reading?
Right, motion to waive the reading.
A second?
Second.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. This is the motion, and this will be a motion to add this to the agenda, so we're not reading it. Is there a motion to add this to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to add it to the
And
agenda.
a second?
Second.
All right. And the purpose of this is basically, as it says down here, that First Selectman Michael C. Tetro is hereby authorized and directed on behalf of the town of Fairfield and the Fairfield WPCA to execute an assistance agreement with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development for the purpose to provide additional information and to execute such other documents as may be required to execute any amendments, rescissions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Fairfield on behalf of the town of Fairfield WPCA. So that's what we're talking about, adding to the agenda to vote on. So we have a motion to add it. Any further discussion on that item?
No.
Any comments from the public? Back to the board. All in favor of adding this item to the agenda?
Yeah.
All right, the item is now added to the agenda, and it is, now it's added to the agenda. Now we need a motion, we need a motion to accept. Is there a motion to accept? A second?
Second.
All right, so the item is before us. Any further discussion on this item only?
Just for the record, this is a regularly scheduled meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay.
If you look at our agenda, it should say that, the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. And the only reason, all we're doing here, the purpose of this is authorizing you to execute the documents to secure the grant of $750,000.
Right.
Yeah, as I understand it, the guts of it's all in the last paragraph. The first four paragraphs kind of set that up by describing what it is.
Okay.
But, and so the Board of Selectmen is basically delegating to the first selectman the ability to sign this.
And since we're dealing with the WPCA, I assume the WPCA has already authorized you or us to
Well,
do this.
they haven't authorized me, we're doing that. And the Board of Selectmen is reviewing us, because that's our charge. Has the WPCA approved this already, right?
Yes, they approved it on their.
They've approved the 2.5 million?
Correct.
Okay. And they don't have anything to do with the 750, that's us.
The 750 is a grant that came to the town
They don't seek it, though, it's you. And
We did, yeah, that was, we applied for that.
the town did, not the WPCA. You did it on behalf of the WPCA.
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, yes.
I just want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
overstepping
No.
the WPCA authority.
No, I think
Yeah.
I voted for this at one of the meetings.
Okay,
This is the
that's what I'm
grant.
looking for.
Mark Barnhart came to the meeting, discussed
Fine.
what we were applying for.
Yeah.
This is it on paper now.
I think if you get the...
3 months later.
Yeah, a little background on the history. We had applied for $2 million or so from the state to fund this shoreline. The bonding commission met, I'm going to say last September, and voted to give us $750, not the full $2 million. So we had some development work and planning work to get the project together, so we're ready to do the whole cost. But then we had to come up with something besides the $750. The WPCA has voted to undertake that, so there's no cost to the taxpayers of the town on this. And,
Just a sewer users.
yes, and somebody has to sign on behalf of the town for the DECD to get this done.
Okay, I'm good.
All right? Any further discussion on the item before us?
No.
Any comments from the public? Back to the town, back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that item passes. So next up is item 5 on the agenda, and this does require the Board of Finance and RTM approval. This is to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. I entertain a motion to waive the reading.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
A second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion to accept
I'll make a motion to
and a
accept.
second. So the item is now before us. The amendment that has been suggested is that if you turn the page, we go to the last 2 paragraphs and delete those from the resolution.
So you want a motion to delete the last 2 paragraphs? All right, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Now, what that does is basically, those 2 paragraphs aren't needed to go to the Board of Finance and RTM.
Because of what we just did.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion here
No.
on the amendment?
No.
Any comments from the public on the amendment, and the amendment only? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the item as amended is before us. Any further discussion on the item?
I think it's an opportunity for just a quick walkthrough. We've, I think, digressed and gotten buried in the weeds. Joe, just remind us and the viewers at home what we're actually voting on.
Sure. This is one of our main trunk sewer lines through town. And it's one of our oldest sections of pipe built in 1950. And it's in probably one of the worst locations in town, too. When the Metro train station was built, the sewer line through the Metro Center was completely rebuilt. But where it enters town property again on sort of the intersection of Kennard and Kenwood, which just for reference point is by Mohegan Concrete. From that point there, it runs basically along the banks of Ash Creek. And it runs along those banks through residential properties, crosses where the Jewish home is, comes in back of Vinnie's Ale House, and comes to terra firma right on Riverside Drive where the Turney Creek crossing is there. So for that distance of 3,000 feet, we have a old pipe, getting close to 70 years old. It's concrete pipe. There's some 36-inch diameter, some 33, some 30. It's outlived its useful life. It's subject to tremendous amount of inflow from the river. So what this would do is relocate it to the proper streets, Kenwood Drive, Dalewood, Ash, Grassmere Avenue, put it on town roads where it's higher and drier. It'll be a great project, much needed, and we're looking forward to getting going with it. And the $750,000 is a good contribution to the project.
Mr. Bateson.
So what you have here in red is what you're proposing. See the line in red?
No, that's
That's the existing.
The line in red is the existing line.
Okay, so you are going to, is the plan to abandon that in place?
Correct.
Okay, and what do we have to do for that? Do we have to fill it?
You basically just plug up at the manhole. They call it bulkheading. So you just stop it at the manholes, but for all intents and purposes, it'll stay in the ground in place in the same area there.
And we're not going to, you don't foresee any significant easements we're going to need for the new line because we're going down all public streets?
Correct, yeah. So currently, we have easements, and we'd abandon those easements. We don't need them, we don't want them. Once again, just in theory, if we don't have to do it, we will. But yeah, it'll go on town lines where,
And this is all going to be gravity fed? There's not going to be any pumping stations here?
correct, all gravity.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, now this is one of our oldest lines, and it's also one of the areas of our town where we've had both a lot of development in the last 40 or 50 years, and some very significant development we're planning on the next 10 to 20 years. So this is a much-needed improvement from that standpoint that's going to benefit our local economy, and certainly through that, and benefit jobs and development in southeastern Fairfield. So I see this as extremely valuable in terms of moving forward, and I'm thrilled that we have a project like this that we get a chance to move forward on here. Any further comments from the board?
So we're going from a 30-inch pipe in some areas to a 36-inch pipe. What's the increase that's going to be for capacity the pipe can take as far as where we're at? Currently, I think we're probably in the 80s or 90% of.
Well, the pipe that we'll be installing, it'll match the diameter on both sides. So currently on Riverside Drive, it's a 36. Where it leaves the metro station is a 36. So this is a current restriction
Okay.
in the flow during this area here.
But the current pipe drops down to 30 inches we're replacing in
Well,
some areas.
Correct, in some areas.
So then we're going from concrete to,
Most likely it'll be either a ductile iron or a PVC pipe.
Okay.
But once again, it hasn't been designed yet, but something,
Right.
a more watertight pipe.
perfect. I'm good. Thank you
All right.
for your work on this.
Any further discussion?
No.
Any comments from the public on the amended motion? Back to the board, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
So that's there. That's this one. Next up is to hear, consider, and act upon a charge for the Strategic Planning Committee. I have a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right. Just to update everybody, we had put out a notice after our last meeting to request resumes and from people that would be interested in being on this. Our cutoff date is Friday, April 7th. Next week, we'll take all of those, including those going back to a year ago, Mr. Timniak, as you requested, and get those to all three members of the board. So I'll have a chance to review those and hopefully move on putting together this initial group as soon as possible. With that as kind of a setup, any further comments, questions, or edits to the charge? We've basically held this open for, I think, 2 or 3 meetings now.
Right.
Yeah.
We've allowed for public comment. We've gotten some back. I think we got some public comment at our last meeting. Any further changes or edits to the charge? Mr. Bateson?
Yeah, I'd like some, in the second paragraph, I'm thinking, I know 5 to 7, but I'd like to change it to 3, just in case we decide to go lower. I know our target's 5, but just so we have some lateral,
Okay.
so I'd like
Do
to,
you want to make a number of motions, or do you want to take them one at a time?
I'll go one at a time.
All right, is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next.
The second one, I want to leave us some, it's the next sentence, it says, "It is anticipated that the steering committee will serve the duration." I would like to reflect and say that the steering committee may serve for the duration of the planning project, so that we have some latitude there, that we're not locked into those members being there. So I would like to strike "it is anticipated" and just leave "the steering committee may serve for the duration of the planning project." How about "at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen"?
Well, just,
Or just leave it?
either way, it's
Yeah.
our discretion, so.
It is.
However you want to say that. It's our committee. One of the different, this is not a building committee in the sense that we're used to with school building committees that get ratified by the RTM. This is a committee that's set up by the Board of Selectmen, so
Okay.
it's 100% within our jurisdiction to make changes as we go forward.
Then I'll
Not
just-
that
yeah.
I would anticipate this necessarily, but if for some reason we needed to modify the charge in 6 months or a year, we could do that.
Then I would just leave it at the steering committee may serve for the duration of the planning project. I don't want to put too many words in.
All right.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sheila, are we going slow enough for you to get this? All right. Mr. Bateson?
One, two, three, four. Fourth paragraph down. After a planning consultant is hired, the committee shall develop a process for completing the plan. I say, since it's a steering committee, they're developing the plan. I'd like to see it just say, developing the plan, so the steering committee doesn't think their job is to complete the plan.
Certainly. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I certainly don't have any issue with that. Any further discussion from the board?
No.
So we're removing completing and replacing it with develop.
Developing.
Yep, I'll second that.
All right, so that changed. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that has been amended. Anything else?
That's all, those were all the comments I had.
Mr. Timniak, any thoughts on this?
I am good with those changes as well.
Okay.
And we have had this for a couple months now. I mean, a couple meetings, so,
And so I would, to me, I think this is a good framework. And certainly if there was something crucial or something else we left out, since it's a Board of Selectmen committee, we could come back and modify the charge if we had to.
perfect.
But I think it's good to get this approved now and get moving forward with this. And I would look at it, certainly, hopefully the next meeting, in worst case, the meeting after that, that we are voting on members of this group. And hopefully we'll get the resumes to everybody fast enough so that we'll have time to interview people or call people and have names come before this group at our next meeting, which I think is April 19th. Is that a reasonable?
I'd like to go with that timeline, depending upon how many resumes we have, but certainly.
Well,
I'm hearing there's a lot.
I promise you we have more than 3.
Right, okay.
All right.
I'd like to try to hit that timeline if we can. If we
Yeah, I
can't,
would too.
We'll move.
As long as we're done with budget, I think we can do it.
So the draft charge as amended is before us. Any further discussion?
No.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good, thank you. Next up, item 7 is the tax collector to consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount recommended. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion or amendments?
I'd like to make an amendment.
All right.
I'd like to change the amount to $18,268.39, followed by a period.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
The item as amended is before us. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, that's done. Next up is a private executive session with the town attorney concerning pending litigation. I ask everybody to leave except for our attorneys. I want to point out that while in private executive session, no motions were made and no votes were taken. May I have a motion to accept the attorney's recommendation?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, to hear, consider, and act upon any other business that shall properly come before this meeting. Is there any business?
Just like to wish everybody a happy Easter coming up. I don't think we have another meeting between now and Easter. It's also going to be school break time, so
Oh, yeah.
enjoy the time with your friends and family during the Easter holiday.
All right, thank you, Mr. Timniak. Mr. Bateson, any
I'm
parting
all
words?
good. Have a
All
good
right.
holiday.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for the moment.
Yeah, no problem.
That was very much appreciated.